I'm a big fan of neuroscience. There is a specific part of our brain, the amygdala, that is constantly scanning for danger. And it is very good at what it does. Everything's fine in the outer world. It's the inner world where they're struggling. I always say, don't ignore the indicator lights on the dashboard, but also don't let those drive the car. Part of it is giving yourself permission to start exploring, start experimenting without making massive change. What are some experiences that you could go out and get to maybe either help you reconnect with something you're passionate about or redirect your future steps?
The idea of job security is outdated as a landline. If you haven't been in a search for a while, it's probable you will at some point, by choice or not. Most executives admit to staying way too long or sense what's coming and justify staying anyway. There's another reason. The faulty belief that navigating to what's next will inevitably be worse and has to suck. Screw that. Lauren Greif has spent a lifetime in corporate and executive search, calling bullshit on stale career advice that most still use. This is Career Blast in a Half, the career podcast for executives ready to cut past outdated career advice to fuel your outcomes now. So let's go.
We're going completely off the rails today. We're going crazy. We're going to talk about this thing that I'm pretty certain you all forgot about. And I'm also going to be doing this with somebody who really knows how to help you get it back. I don't know about you. I kind of got the dream kicked out of me. I got it kicked out of me. And then I started thinking that once it got kicked out, there was no room to bring it back. And that's a big fat lie. So our guest today is Mitch. Mitch is the founder of his own coaching business, but why he's really here is because Mitch Matthews has a framework called Dream, Think, Do. And you might be thinking, like, are you nuts? I have no place for a dream in the middle of this quote unquote uncertain market. I mean, I need to make money. I need to land faster. I need to be professional. You're nuts. Like, you're talking to me about this woo-woo thing. And I am. Because dreaming, doing, and achieving, they're not like on separate islands. They can coexist. In fact, I want to make the argument that they need to live in harmony with each other. So before I get into too many kumbayas and start lighten the sage and all that, I just want you to welcome Mitch Matthews. And thank you so much for being with our listeners and being part of the willingness to spread the message across so many different people in their careers and really be a catalyst for helping people love their work.
Yeah.
And bring it on.
I love it. It is such an honor to be here, Lauren. I just love your work and the people that you're working with. And I think we're speaking to the same people, just slightly different rooms. So this is awesome. I love it. I'm so honored to be here.
What's your dream?
What's my current dream?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, so that's the fun thing is I've got a bunch of them. Right. So, some of them deals with locations and spaces and experiences. And that's a great segue in that when I work with high achievers, it's like we've talked about before. It's that oftentimes with high achievers, a lot of people look at high achievers like your audience and go, like you were talking about, like, what do you mean high achievers don't dream? They must dream. They're successful. And high achievers often dream for their organizations, dream for their teams, but it's been a while that high achievers have given themselves permission to dream. So much so that I know with my own coaching clients, if I say, hey, let's dream a little bit, they're like, I don't even know where to start. Like if I ask them, what are your top 5 goals for your team? They could tell you with precision. What's your 3 big, organizational goals for the year? They could tell me with, a spreadsheet attached to each, right? But if I ask them their own dreams, they look at me with a dead stare, like, I don't know. So oftentimes what I'll do to start the conversation is say, hey, let's throw the dream word out. And let me ask you this. What kind of experiences do you want to have? What kind of experiences do you want to have more? Right. And sometimes for some people that brings up like, oh, I finally want to take that trip to Italy. For other people, it's like, I want to experience happiness more often. I want to experience joy more often. I want to experience connection with my kids again, or connection with my spouse again. And it's interesting because dream, that word, I have a love-hate relationship with the word. I mean,
Totally.
like you said, my podcast is called Dream, Think, Do. So I have to talk about dreaming, but I have a wrestling match with that word sometimes because it's a heavy word. It's a weighty word. Sometimes it's an overwhelming word. Sometimes it's it pushes all of the buttons, right? And so people shut down before they can even start. So sometimes the experiences is an easier hurdle to get over. And so that's, as an example, we have 2 boys and our older son is getting ready to be deployed in a couple of weeks. He's getting deployed to the Middle East for a year at least. And so I'm really focused not so much on big dreams right now as deep experiences. So this next 2 weeks, we are focusing on really intentional experiences. Our younger son is a working actor in LA. So he gets back on Saturday and they know it. They're like, oh, dad's talking about experiences again. Right. But like we are really setting up a series of experiences to have together. And they don't have to be big trips. They don't have to be things, but it's specific things to be able to experience deeper connection, truly being in the moment, having fun, experiencing joy in the midst of uncertainty, those kinds of things. So when you ask me some of my dreams right now, I'm focused on experiences, and that sometimes is an easier thing to talk about.
So when people are going through a career transition, when they are in a place of maybe not feeling like at the top of their game, right?
Yep.
I've been
certainly not at the top of the Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Like they're not like, hey, hanging 10, like I'm feeling maybe like a 1 down or less than, or I know when I've been in, career straits, so to speak, like I don't feel like I won the lottery.
Yep.
And so my question to you is like, how do we reconcile the feelings that we're having? And the permission to allow for that to happen, because that window it feels like not only like a luxury, but almost like a shameful direction. Like you're an idiot. Like how could you even go there if you're unemployed or
or on the bubble, or you got that stink eye from your boss and you don't know why, all those things. Absolutely. And that, that's again, with a podcast like Dream, Think, Do, there are some people who just assume it's all rainbows, butterflies, and little ponies, not the real stuff. But I'm a big fan of neuroscience and understanding what's actually happening in our body. And, as you well know, there is a specific part of our brain, the amygdala, that is constantly scanning for danger. And it is very good at what it does. It is constantly on the alert, looking for whether it is stink eye from your boss, whether it is the headline on the USA Today while you were getting gas this morning, something we saw when you scrolled, or maybe even something that was said in a meeting and you're like, hey, there's some writing on the wall here. Or let's just go a step deeper. Everything's fine, big picture, but I have a feeling for some of your people, right? Everything's fine in the outer world. It's the inner world where they're struggling. Like the job that they used to love isn't as satisfying anymore, or it takes a lot more work to get excited to go to work in the morning, or it takes a lot more coffee to stay focused and engaged during the day. And my guess is, I know your listeners, they're the high achievers, they're the high performers. there's a very good chance in those scenarios, nobody knows it. Like their team doesn't see it. They're still performing, but they know it. Like deep down on the inside, the foundation is cracking and they know they got to fix something. And so one of my first things is, and I know you talk about this a lot, is to not ignore those, the lights on your dashboard, right? I just got a new Ford truck and this thing's like a space shuttle, for crying out loud. It's a little overwhelming. And the dash is like two big iPads. It's nuts. And so there's more indicator lights than I'm used to, which is fine. But it's one of those where it's like, it's amazing what it's telling me. And our brains do the same thing. And so sometimes those indicator lights come on like, hey, stink eye from the boss indicator light. Like, maybe I need to pay attention to that because it might be real. It might be that they had a bad burrito and something's not working for them and has nothing to do with you, but it could very well have something to do with something that's going on that is related to you. So it's that I always say, don't ignore the indicator lights on the dashboard, but also don't let those drive the car, right? So pay attention to those, but then also say, all right, where do you want to drive this thing? Where do you want to take this thing? And part of it is giving yourself permission to start exploring, start experimenting without making massive change. There's a lot of people who think, especially high performers, that when they get to a level of success, right, that they might think, I shouldn't complain. I know for me, I had hit a high level of success in the pharmaceutical world, and I got promoted into a bad fit job. It wasn't a bad job, but it was a bad fit job. And I'm grateful for it because it woke me up. But it was a painful experience because you and I have talked about this. It was one of those situations where I got the promotion. I had everything everybody thought I would ever want. And within a day of getting in that job, I thought, oh no. And I also realized, who can I complain to? I let my wife know, but who else could I complain to? Because I had the promotion, I had the income, I had the, all of the bells and whistles and car and all that stuff. But I knew this is not where I was supposed to be. And I saw that light come on the dashboard and I didn't quit that day. Mm-hmm. I had to say, all right, I need to pay attention to that. And for me, it was realizing, acknowledging it first, and then saying it's not going to be a quick fix, because I joke about it now. But in that scenario, we were living a sitcom life, which was single income, two children, oppressive mortgage. So I couldn't just quit. I wanted to just quit, but I couldn't just quit. And so I had to do the thing that we talk about all the time, is to say, all right, pay attention. And what are some small experiments? What are some little things you can try, right? What are some experiences that you could go out and get to maybe either help you reconnect with something you're passionate about or redirect your future steps? And that's what I did. I wound up going and getting additional training and building a business on the side and all those things.
What are your favorite little micro experiments? What could you do? Because as you're thinking about this, I mean, all I'm thinking about is crowdsourcing. Right?
Yes.
Like if I want what that person has, I want to find out what they did.
Yeah.
So that I could play the Simon Says game, right?
100%.
That was my first idea. What are the other?
I love that. Well, and that is such a great thing. And I know for, a lot of the folks that I work with, I'm guessing a lot of your audience, they're maximizers, but I have a feeling they also don't feel like they've got an abundance of spare time. So some people might hear that and go, God, that'd be great to go and take a week off and try something new. But that's not what we're talking about. And it's amazing. I'm not much of a mathlete, Lauren, but I did the math on this, that 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, doesn't even have to be 7 days a week, but 5 days a week, 15 minutes a day over the course of a year, that's about 60 hours devoted to trying some new things, right? And you can get a lot done in 15 minutes, right? And 15 minutes at the time doesn't feel like a lot. But 15 minutes, when you get into it, that's almost a full TED Talk. That's 15 minutes of focused reading. That's 15 minutes of a quick conversation or a quick email to someone. Or maybe, you sign up for a class and it's 15 minutes of watching a video. All those things, like that kind of thing starts to really add up, especially for people that are high achievers and are already busy. So I know for me, it's always, where can you start? Where can you start small, right? I know for me, one of the big things is always, where can you get some additional training, right? Like I love the crowdsourcing to be able to say, hey, who can I reach out to, right? And oftentimes it is people within your network. There might be somebody that you know is doing exactly what you're curious about, and they'd be willing to talk with you about it for a cup of coffee, right? And that's fantastic if you want to do that. But there's also e-mentors everywhere, right? Like I'm guessing if you listen to this, then Lauren is one of your e-mentors. Lauren is one of those people, whether you've ever met her, and I really encourage you to meet her if you can, right? But if you've ever met her, you know she's full of wisdom. But like a lot of people can't. They can't come and buy you a cup of coffee, even though they should. They should definitely come to North Carolina and enjoy, a great cup of coffee with you. But that's the beauty of the era that we live in, is that they can listen in and take in shows like this and learn from you. So that's another big one. But also, like, what classes, what kinds of things could you sign up and just experiment with? Not quit your job, not bet the farm, not move to the other side of the planet, but like just start to dip your toe in and intentionally experiment with learning some new things.
I am blowing the lid off of our best kept secret, our 30-day blast program. Yeah, you heard it. 30 days. We have seen so much success for this program that past clients have landed in that 30 days and increased their compensation 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, over 100%. Now, not everybody lands and earns that much in 30 days, but my point is it prepares you. And in 30 days, if you're not out of there with a changed mindset and changed clear and simple ways to be able to navigate the market this year, then we'll gladly refund your misery and you can go back to applying now. Check out the link below for the next 30-day blast, and we would love to have you there because we live for your success, and that's what's really important. See you then.
I really want to bring this also with a little bit of a caveat, I guess you could say, is like, please don't skip this step.
Yeah.
Like, please don't just like flick it off and think, here I am. I have this brilliant idea and not troubleshoot it. I'm sure you do too. Oh, the job search isn't working out. I'm just going to be a consultant.
Yes.
It's like, it must be nice to just be something, right? But actually, those things are not as turnkey as they may appear.
Yep.
There's no grass is greener. I mean, we think that there is, but you never know what's on the other side of that.
Right.
So please go ahead, do yourself a solid, and make sure that you're not just like fantasizing. We're not talking about fantasizing. We're talking about dreaming and also putting some legs around the dream.
Yes. Absolutely. I love the phrase that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. And that really does go into this idea when we get to that place and then we're like, okay, I'll be entertained. I'll dream for a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I need to think about it.
Right. Right. And that is,
right.
That is the beauty of it. And that's, we call it Dream, Think, Do as a show because I hope it's catchy and memorable, but it is a really important 3-part sequence. And the dreaming has to be separated from the thinking. Like I'm a big believer in when I, thinking, and when I say that, I mean planning, strategy, spreadsheets. Oh my gosh, Lauren, my spreadsheets are a thing of beauty. They are color coded. It's like Picasso gets in there, right? But if I start thinking too early, if I start strategizing too early, what I wind up getting is what we call incremental dreams, not exponential dreams. Oftentimes what people do is they'll give themselves a little window to dream, like what might I do? What might I want to experience? But they start thinking too early. And that is immediately, well, if I want to do that, do I have the budget? Do I have the time? Do I know the people? And you know this, some of the biggest dreams that have been ever hatched and pursued, right? The person had to let go of some reality, at least initially, to say, well, what if? I love this story. I don't know if you've ever heard the story of John Howard, but he had a dream in the 70s of kind of generating awareness for bicycling. He was a big bicyclist and he wanted to generate awareness for bicycling. And so he said, I wonder how fast somebody could go on a bike. And it's such a great illustration of how incremental dreaming versus exponential dreaming is different. What typically people do is if they have a dream like that, how could we get the world to know or think about bicycling? How fast could somebody go on a bike? What most people do is they do incremental dreaming, which is often, well, how fast could somebody go on a bike? How fast could I go on a bike? What's the fastest I've ever gone on a bike? Who do I know that's gone fast, right? And you might think 30 miles an hour. I think maybe I got close to 35 miles an hour going down a hill once. I think those guys in really tight shorts on the Tour de France get to 60 miles an hour. We do incremental where it's comparison dreaming of being able to say, well, this is what I know to be true. What I love about John Howard is John Howard said, what if somebody got to 150 miles an hour under their own power on a bicycle? And most people are like, well, that's crazy. That can't be done. And he said, instead of, I wonder if, he said, how could you? How could somebody do it? And he did it. He went 154 miles an hour on a push bike, like an actual Schwinn bicycle. I don't know if it's a Schwinn, but a bicycle, right? Because he asked the better question. He kept dreaming and he didn't move into thinking too early. And if you pull it up, you can actually pull it up. There's YouTube videos of it. A drag racing car, specially designed drag racing car, got him up to 125 miles an hour, and he cranked away to get to 154 miles per hour under his own power because he asked a better question. He didn't think too soon, right? He didn't just do incremental thinking. He did exponential thinking. So a lot of people, that's what I recommend is you start to think about what might be possible. Maybe it's somebody that's thinking they want to start their own business. And if they start to think too early to say, I can't do that. Or I know one of my friends tried to do that. It wasn't successful. All those things. Incremental.
Right. Because the amygdala starts working.
Trying to keep you safe, right? Trying to keep you out of those dark alleys.
Right.
Exactly.
And I love that piece about thinking too early, because if you're not sure-footed in what that and how big that dream is and what it means to you, you're basically planning your exit strategy.
That's exactly
you're like, ooh, let me just open this door here, and then I don't have to do it because now I found something, and that's why I don't have to pursue my dream. So you just in your dream factory is also the side door of the excuse factory, right?
That's exactly right.
Scary.
So it's giving yourself that permission and space to say, okay, what if? How could I do that? How could someone do it? How might I do it? And allow yourself that space and time to be able to dream a little bigger and think a little bigger.
I mean, that question alone is really going to put your dream to the test.
Right.
Because if you're already at that place where I can't even ask that question, it's cooked. Right. You don't want it badly enough. Sorry, you just don't. You don't really want it that badly. And then just to wrap up this framework, I'm curious, okay, now let's assume you have your dream, you imparted this exponential thinking at the right time, and now you're in the do phase, right? And now let's just say this, because every good dream has some kind of drop to it, right? And it doesn't ever look like hole in one or any of that. And so how do you not diss the dream? How do you not depart from your dream and keep holding on when it looks like it doesn't work out?
Absolutely. I always say do like a scientist, right? A scientist, what I love about science, I don't know about you, Lauren, but I was not great at school. So I think I was a solid C+ science student. But since school, I have fallen in love with the scientific method. I love the scientific method. And the scientists, when they want to go in and prove or disprove something, they first create a hypothesis, which by definition, if you look up the definition of hypothesis, it is a best guess. It's a well-educated guess at how something's going to go, which I think is probably a really great definition of a plan, right? We don't know. This is our best guess at how something's going to go. But then a scientist doesn't say we're done at the planning stage. The scientist says, now we're going to test that hypothesis. We're going to test that plan, and they start to experiment. And the beauty is if you keep that scientific mindset to be able to say, okay, if it goes the way I thought, I will learn something. If it doesn't go the way I thought, I will learn something. And you put your focus on what can we learn? And, part of that, especially if it's, trying something new with your career or maybe trying a side hustle or those kinds of things, part of it's keeping experiments small, right? Keep the blast radius small. So don't go in and just quit your day job that, the first day in, but say, hey, what's a 15-minute thing that I could do today to start learning about this or trying this or just, doing a little, get your toe in there and just learn a little bit more, those kinds of things, and continue to check in that, when you look at the scientific method, the last step of that is to evaluate and adjust, right? So a scientist says, all right, did this work? Did this go the way I thought? If it did, great. I've learned something. Now I'm going to adjust. If it didn't, great. I'm going to learn. Now I'm going to adjust. And you keep growing like that. And there are some people who will do that right into a new career. There are some people that will do that right into launching their own business. And some people will do that in the process of just realizing, hey, this is a way to actually experience more peace, or this is a way to just experience more joy, or this is a way to experience more happiness. And that is a huge win.
I want to bring this back to some very tactical and also common things that you can test for.
Yeah.
Because I get to ask these questions all the time. I'm sure you do too.
Yep.
Should I use the green circle? I don't know. Test it.
Right. Yep.
What if my headline doesn't work? I don't know. Test it.
Yep.
Give yourself your runway. Put it in your calendar. Here it is, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whatever that is, and then go back and review any of the outcomes, responses, see where there is improvement.
Yep.
If you're hearing crickets or you're getting a bunch of recruiters that are sending you jobs from the green circle that you are not interested in, knock. Don't keep running it.
Right.
Go ahead and change it or take it off because you're finding that it's not drawing, or there may be some other components of your LinkedIn profile that are not vibing with what the audience is. They're not picking up what you're putting down, right? So
That's
there's some
exactly
disconnect.
right. Yep.
There's some disconnect. So there's lots of things you can test. You can test your outbound cold networking strategies, right? If I just want to connect or nice to meet you isn't working, find something else, but don't keep going back. And I'm doing a backflip. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you offering that, because I think that there's this really icky perception that once it's there, it's permanent.
Right.
But you as an executive or somebody, a high achiever or anything like that, you are iterating in a company all the time. You are hiring new people. You are looking at different strategies, different workarounds. You need to apply that same thing if you are not in a company with yourself, because that audition of how you got to where you got to is going to give you so many unlocks.
Yep.
I am so glad that you brought that up, because this isn't a there's no manual.
Nope.
Sorry. And
well, especially in today's day and age. I mean, I love how you focus on how there are certain things that are changing almost by the minute, and there are certain things that probably will never, ever change. But there are a lot of things that are changing very quickly. And I agree with you. And it's funny because, oftentimes when I'm working with coaching clients, they're iterating on the next season of their career, or they're thinking about starting a business. And one of the things is they'll say, well, what if it doesn't work? And my response sometimes surprises them, but I will say, well, guess what? It probably won't.
Right.
And they'll say,
right.
What? Like, hey, you're supposed to be coaching me. You're supposed to be encouraging me. Like, what do you mean it probably won't? And I said, well, it probably won't work the way that you think it will. So 2 things need to happen. One, right now, you need to ask yourself, why is this important?
Mm-hmm.
You need to get clear on why is this important? Because if you truly want to have an amazing career, an incredible life, if maybe you want to launch a business on the side, whatever it might be, like that is not going to happen by accident. Why is that important? And I know for some of my clients, when I ask them, why is that important? Some of them will say, well, I want to show my kids that I, they don't have to live and they don't have to grow up in a home where the parents hate their jobs. Or I want to show my kids that it's important to pursue their dreams. Or I want to live a life where I feel like I left it all on the field. I did everything I was put on the planet to do. Or I want to show somebody, some people, that's their why. And it's like, well, okay, that's great. So understanding your why, and then to understand what's one thing you want to learn. Like to be able to say, okay, this one strategy, let's just test it. There's a good chance some of it will work. Some of it won't. What do you want to learn? Well, I want to learn how to do that, or how I might want, how it might work. Those kinds of things. Like focus on the things that we can control as opposed to the things we can't. I know it's trite, but it's so important and so true.
I'm so delighted that you've given us this permission to see the reasoning and the rationale, the science, incremental impact of dreaming, and really allowing it. I once heard a podcast and they talk about, that first pancake, it never gets flipped right. The batter's all over the place, broken in half. So let that first pancake, let that dream happen, and don't give up on it. If it's really important, like I'll just quote my husband. Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. He always says, we do what we prioritize. And if that dream is a priority, it's getting done.
Right.
So thank you so much, Mitch. And thank you, listeners. We love you. We are so grateful that you take us on your walks, that you are like in the car with us, that you maybe like have us buzzing in the grocery aisles. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, you know what I'm going to ask you. Please write a podcast review. This is what keeps us going. It inspires us to hear what you're thinking. And it also, of course, helps us get better guests and grow. And we are forever grateful for that. So we will look forward to seeing you, hearing from you, learning from you on the next episode of Career Blast and a Half. So thanks so much.
Thank you for joining today. We appreciate your listening ears. Big time. We ask this: use these tools, not tomorrow, right now, and share them by spreading the love, leaving us a rating and subscribe so you don't miss the next Career Blast and a Half. Most of all, thank you for you.